Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Dr. Alan Hyde.
I'm Don Radin.
Today, we're going to talk again about the world of addiction recovery. We have this conversation often on our
hmm
platform. There's a lot of things I wish I would have known about it. Even having grown up in it, there's often a lot of question marks, a lot of deception, a lot of denial when we're talking about the world of addiction recovery and our mental health and the mental health of the people around us. But Don and I have lived experiences both as family members in these environments and individuals with our own recovery walks and recovery journeys. And so we're going to get into some of the information and just kind of see what we can kick around today that could or could not be helpful to you guys. But if you have a loved one or are an individual struggling with these things, you may find this information helpful today. So let's get into it.
Sounds good. Um, so from my angle as an addict and alcoholic and active 12 stepper, um, I kind of formulate my definition of addiction around antiquated data. I know that's true, but it makes a lot of sense to the common person. I had addiction and alcoholism, and I didn't know what the definition was. I just thought for me, and this is again coming from a 12-step perspective, uh, I would go to meetings, and because everyone else was saying I'm an alcoholic and an addict, I just chimed in. Just because I identified with pain and loss, which everyone identifies with, you, the viewer right now, who may just be interested in this reel or scrolling through and stopped here, um, may know someone who drinks every day. That does not mean that they're alcoholic. Um, if they can stop on their own resources, stop on their own, then by definition of my understanding, it's he's not an addict or an alcoholic. So heavy drinking does not, or heavy using does not necessarily equal addiction. Um, by definition, in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's someone who has lost the power of choice. Whether they drink or not, they'll even drink or use against their own will. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, and then I'm doing it. Uh, and or someone who's lost control over the amount they take once they start. So if they say they're going for a couple, they put a line in the sand, and that line continually moves over the course of the evening or day, then by the definition that I understand, that person is an alcoholic or an addict. And it's an or question. It's not a and. So either of those conditions qualify someone, by my definition, for addiction and alcoholism. I happen to have both. I have not wanted to 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 use, and as I'm putting the pills or the cocaine or the drink into my gullet, I'm saying, I don't want to do this. This is going to work out so bad, and I'm cussing the drug, the substance, and I still do it anyway. And then when I go for just a couple, and I have all intentions to go for just a couple, I end up shutting it down. And even when especially when there's a big event that's going to happen tomorrow, my daughter's going to be born. Uh, she's coming home from the hospital. Big things. The night before, I tell myself this delusion that this time it's going to be different. I don't want to miss this event. It's so important to me that I clearly will not continue to destroy that experience by continued use. And I still do.
Yeah. It's on the flip side, family member side of it, as a brother or somebody who struggles with these things, it's like, I don't want to be resentful. I don't want to carry over past behavior and put that on somebody who has a struggle. But prior to recovery, I could not manage that. I was angry. I was resentful. I
Mm.
felt hopeless. I felt a desire to control, fix, and save. Um, somebody who had an unmanageable problem and wasn't going to be at that time seeking any recovery for it. And so on both sides of it, it's like we can want something, right? We could want to do better and be better, but unless we find simple principles with support, um, then the best thing I can say as a clinician is good luck changing that on your own. See, the real aspect of recovery is support, right? Support of individuals who understand your experience. And early in my journey, the conversation was, without support, this only gets worse. It doesn't get better. And so in my clinical practice, I spend a lot of time educating people, and I remind myself in my own recovery that if you know someone who has an unmanageable problem, all right, then the conversation for the family member to not lie to ourselves is to just observe the truth. Are they seeking support from other addicts and alcoholics to make better decisions or not? And when they're not, you don't even have to guess. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when those behaviors will progress and get worse. That's a really hard fact to sit with when somebody maybe at any given moment is sober and it looks like they're putting the right foot in front of the other, but then when it comes to the conversations of recovery, it's completely absent. It can be hard to sit there and know that this is going to progress in a way that's less than desirable. And then I come back to this place where no matter what the deal is for somebody else, I need to be in a place of peace. I don't need to live in the fear of what's going to happen in the future, even though, right, the observation is clear, right, of what repeats over and over through a process of insanity. I don't have to be the one to go and relay it to that person. Number one, I can scratch that itch by doing this here and educating. And there's something about that that's real important too, is we go to the source of other people with lived experiences to get the proper information so that you don't have to sit there and bludgeon and beat over the head your loved one who's struggling with addiction and say, you've got to get recovery or this will never change. The education for the family member is, don't kid yourself. Don't go out on the lie just because things are good right now and believe that it's going to stay good forever. Just let it be good right now. And that's a hard pill to swallow, is to just let it be okay today.
And I mean, there's an old adage that how can you tell if an addict is lying? His lips are moving.
Yeah.
And so, that doesn't mean around just being intoxicated. A person who is an addict or alcoholic, I'm great at covering up the using to a point. And if I have someone who's codependent or intertwined in my mess, like a family member, when I tell them I'm not using, they want to believe that. So much so that it's this delusion that they have convinced themselves of. And the truth is, if the person be a real alcoholic and addict, the day's coming that the relapse is happening. It's coming. Oh no, I'll never use again is a common misnomer. It's not the truth. It's a misunderstanding of alcoholism and addiction. Step one in the 12-step world says very clearly that I'm going to do it again. I'm powerless and I'm unmanageable. I have lost the power to choose, and my life is unmanageable. I'm not able to manage my thought life around drugs and alcohol. I'll convince myself this time it'll be different. I don't want to use that much. I'll change my substance. Well, I'm not drinking liquor, I'm drinking beer. I hate to tell you this, but ethanol, ETOH, is in both of those products. One happens to be a stronger version of it, but the same chemical is in beer, wine. It's all there. So it's not really, it's just some smoke show that we create in order for you to believe that we're making changes and making big strides. But as Alan talked about earlier, without people to hold you accountable, an addict will get loaded again. If I don't have a spiritual program of action combined with people who are marching lockstep with me in the solution, I'm misguided. I'm I'm operating under false pretenses. Operating under misinformation because, again, I didn't realize that I was uh, an addict or an alcoholic. I had no idea that that was true. By definition, I assimilated with 12-step groups. I wanted to get what they had, but I couldn't just be a meeting maker. Meetings alone by themselves without a program of action just means it's a sober hangout club. If I operate only under spiritual principles, I'm going to stay sober. If I operate under the 12 steps, but I don't have this layer of accountability that I would have in meetings. So it's a combination of both of those. And I just thought it was going to meetings. I thought it was just sharing my feelings and my problem of the day. Uh, I didn't realize that my job, having recovered from this illness, was to help others to do the same thing. And that's my primary duty. I'm supposed to practice these principles in all my affairs. The book says on page 25 that a much more important demonstration lies in our respective homes, occupations, and affairs, which means the most important place for me to practice these 12-step principles are not in a meeting. It's at my home.
Mhm.
Then my occupation, my workplace, and then other affairs, which would be, well, 12-step meetings. Um, so, respectively speaking, that's the order in which I should be practicing these principles. There's no, in fact, I was thinking about this morning. There's no recovery portion of my life, and then my work life, and then my home life, and then my financial life. It's all spiritual. It's all my one life. There's no, I'm not a divided personality. I don't have, multiple personality disorder. Um, in recovery, I should be have integrity through and through in every interaction that I have.
Yeah. Yeah. It lives and dies with us.
Right.
It's, when people, the adults that I work with, when they're in relationships and they're in therapy, one of the chief conversations that comes up is like, well, I really want to do couples therapy with my partner. Right. And this can be for many, many, it's not just addiction. This can be for communication.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation, I had this with a client the other day, is like, has she ever once come to you and said that she wants couples therapy too? And he looked at me, he's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, until she does, right? Couples therapy isn't going to be the mode. It's not going to help, because a lot of times couples, they go into couples therapy and they want to slap the certificate on the wall, to show everyone in the neighborhood that says, say, see, look, we tried. Right. A much better objective, for these ways of coming together, is when an individual, like Don was talking about, is practicing principles in all their affairs that work with support, and the other individual in the relationship is doing the same thing, and then we converge and come together for a united goal. Well, then, right, the efficacy goes up, and all of the challenges that the couple is facing can resolve through shared understandings that each individual is going to be working on themselves. And so accountability, like Don was sharing a moment ago, becomes of paramount importance. It's really painful when you look at a situation where somebody else you deem to be misbehaving continues to misbehave. And the first question you have to ask yourself is, what's my part in this? And oftentimes the answer to that is that I'm not detaching, that I'm taking things personally, that I'm not doing the mature thing and taking care of myself in the ways that I need to. And that's the plight, like when we talk about addiction, that's the plight of the family member, is their part. My part was often taking things personally and trying to control the situation.
Control it. Yeah.
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 And it's like, until we let go and relinquish that control and let people come to us on their terms, right, things won't change. And so, no matter what the aspect is, when Don was talking about these aspects of our life coming together in a balance of a whole fruitful life, we have to be able to focus on that, protect it, grow it, and do and be better, so that we attract in others in our life who are doing the same thing. And I tell people every day in my clinical practice, if you have people in your life, blood or not, that you love who aren't doing those things, then that's where detachment and distance can be okay. We're told in our society all the time that it's not okay to detach. It's like, well, they're going to feel abandoned. It's like, well, if they're abandoning themselves and not meeting their own needs, well, then distance is okay for you to meet your own needs and take care of your own adult life. And so we have to start to distinguish these lines or we get into a lot of trouble.
Mm. Yeah, that illusion of control. It's so incredibly important for you to hear this. It's an illusion that you believe that you can control this thing, and that's from both sides. If you're an alcoholic and an addict who qualifies for not being able to uh, control their drinking when they use, and they can't stay stopped, then the illusion that you can control this somehow. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to eat my greens. I'm going to start reading lofty books about self help. Um, that's great. It won't stop the inevitable. And the illusion of control on the other side from the family is, if I just love him or her enough, they'll stop for me. And when the addict is begging for another chance or more financial resources to help get them out of this pit that they put themselves in, um, the family member is going to say, well, if I just, even though I said I'm never going to do this again, if I just do it one more time, they'll see how much I love them and they'll stop for my sake. And so it's the illusion of control. And the reality is, the addict or alcoholic will take your generosity and your kindness and then continue to do what they're doing. You won't get your needs met. And by the way, it sounds an awful like an addict. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to help him this time. Next time I'm kicking him out. Next time she's not allowed near the children. And then the next time happens, and then you reinforce that your word means nothing because you then move back on your boundaries. It's easier to keep your boundaries here and let them in than it is to start here and try to push them out.
Mm.
um, and so this illusion of control goes both sides. And that control, the inability to control, whether it's behaviors from the family or, substance use from the addict or alcoholic, that illusion of control, uh, will chase that to the bitter end. We'll
Yeah.
chase that until we lose our family members, till someone overdoses and dies. We'll chase. I've worked with families that were going to financially support a guy into, my facility, and the addict said, I need to go take care of this one more thing, so can we do it on Monday? And then Monday I get a call from the family member that my brother's dead.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
it's that illusion of control from both sides. Well, if I just let him handle this one little bit of business instead of immediately taking action on a solution. And then the illusion from the addict side, well, I'm just going to have one more hurrah because
Mhm.
I know I'm going to rehab next.
Yeah.
Next day, next 2 days,
Well,
next week.
and isn't that really it for the family, right? When we talk about healing in any of our senses of mental health, you've got an illusion of thinking and a delusional thinking and denial, right? So the illusion is all the thoughts of the ways that you want it to be. And for the family member of an addict, that big illusion is control, that like I can do something to get it to be better, like Don was talking about. And then the delusion is anything tied to that, because it's delusional to think that way, that you doing anything is going to change another adult's behaviors, right? So you've got this intersection of illusions, right, of the ways in your mind that you're envisioning things going, and the delusion of like Well, you've already experienced it. Nothing you've ever done has worked, right? And so to think that way would be delusional, which brings us inevitably to denial. And it's a denial of the problem. It's one of the biggest issues that our society faces. It's like the percentages are outrageous, but we don't hear about it every day. And if people talk about it in media, it's completely shunned. We would rather make fancy shows about it that glorify it than actually help people get better. And I'm not going to knock that too much because we know that that's the society that we live in because delusion is safer, right?
Mm.
I can keep this at
Mhm.
an arm distance. It's not that this isn't an issue actually in my life, right? But that denial not only causes people to die, but it perpetuates the problem. It causes us to facilitate and placate the problem, making it worse. And so there is an immediacy to this. We have to, when we see it, act, and we've got to act for ourselves. And so the biggest question you'll hear from the family member is like, well, what can I do? Well, the first biggest thing you can do is let go, right? Stop getting involved. Well, one of the things you'll see, let's say without recovery, let's say an addict's got other areas of their life that are in order. Work is a big one, right? And they've got all those ducks in a row. You'll start to see them kind of facilitate that area of their life. They're trying to make sure everything is perfect at work. Maybe then you see them, they start to bring in a relationship. Hey, a relationship, let's have kids. Hey, how about some pets and animals? Hey, how about a mortgage, right? They'll start to build up all these aspects, right? But they're not practicing anything in the way of a spiritual surrender to a problem. And all of this gets lost. All right.
Mhm.
It's why in the recovery circles we call it the disease of loss for both sides, for the family member and for the addict, is that if we spend a bunch of time in denial thinking that we can build up a life on no foundation, you will lose it all.
Mhm.
Right. And so as a family member, or even as an addict who's trying to sort this together, the objective is a foundation. And that foundation starts with the word no. Right.
Mhm.
Hey, this seems uncomfortable. I'm not really sure about that, right? Where people go out on the lie is like, oh, man, they were so smart, they could have been the president. It's like, first of all, no, they could not have been, right? A lot goes into that, and they haven't really shown that much commitment to even getting sober, let alone running a country, right? So it's like, we detach from the lies that we tell ourselves of like how well other things are going, and we look at the truth. The truth is there a foundation of turning problems over and admitting distress, admitting powerlessness, or not? Then it really is that simple. A lot of people complicate it, especially because of our society's lack of education around the depth of these issues.
Mhm.
But the simplicity, when we cut through it, it's like a hot knife through butter. Is this person setting a foundation of truth and honesty and humility, and with a willingness to look at pain? And the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous encapsulates that beautifully. We admitted we were powerless and our lives had become unmanageable. So, like, if those aren't the words coming out of the addict's mouth in your life, then you can be certain that the next word out of yours needs to be no.
Mhm.
And we set a foundation there. As soon as you do that, you get out of their way in order for them to feel their consequences, because the consequences will illuminate the truth and the truth will set them free.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I was just thinking about how that denial from both sides is killing people.
Yeah.
Like people are really dying. Relationships are dying on the vine. Families are being broken up because of denial. And this denial is what you want to believe. You just, you want to believe that they're telling the truth. And most addicts and alcoholics, because of stigma and that we live in a society that does not, even though we watch, glorified movies about it, we have the stigma of if you're an alcoholic and an addict, you're a bad person.
Mm.
And as a result, for me as an addict or alcoholic, and for the family member that you may be, or if you're the alcoholic or addict or the family member, um, you want to, one of the most common words on my report cards was potential. Don has so much potential. And it's because we're gifted at one thing or another, whether it's our intellect, our ability to speak, charisma, job duties that you mentioned earlier. You know, we're really good in our chosen profession, or we're really good at some aspect of life. Maybe it's music or cars or whatever, and skiing, sports. I mean, whatever it is, and the family puts all their chips on that potential,
Mm.
and it's not the truth. The truth is, if they be a real alcoholic or addict, they cannot stop on their own volition. And anything that they tell you about their ability to do that is either an outright lie or their own delusion that they're believing in.
Mm.
The lie that they tell themselves and say, yeah, you're right. No evidence has shown that I can control and enjoy my drinking or using. There's zero evidence about that, but this time it's going to be different. Um,
Well, I could get anybody to believe in like a false competence.
sure.
All right. All I really have to do is tell you that I'm good at something. And unless you witness me do it, how are you ever going to know if I'm actually good at that thing?
Mm,
But see, that's the axiom for most people, especially in our society. It's like you can say whatever you want, but when rubber meets the road, are you doing the things that are going to give you the felt sense of competence that allows you to feel peace in your life? And so it's like we talk about this in like abusive relationships. Why do some ladies find themselves stuck in a relationship with a dude who's abusive? Is because they've bought the lie, hook, line, and sinker of false competence.
hmm
Right. So this guy can talk a really good game, but when the rubber meets the road, he's a real piece of work.
hmm
It's like, okay, well, we know people want safety and security and confidence and competence in a relationship. Well, if I could just tell you that those are the case and do so in a way that is convincing, then when it gets down the road and I actually have to prove it, well, now we've spent some time you buying the lie, that it's going to be really hard for you to believe that that's not the truth. All right. But
hmm
the reality is I'm the one who has to step into my own competence as opposed to just telling you I've got to live it if I'm going to sleep in a place of peace and comfort at night and get some rest. Is that my competence isn't dependent upon you believing that I'm competent. It's about walking a path of doing and being better. And that's what recovery gives us. That's what working on our mental health and well-being gives us, is a true lived experience of competence that other people can trust. You know, I don't spend any time trying to tell people, oh, I'm a competent therapist. Those words don't ever come out of my mouth. They either see it and want to work with me in my practice, and then we work together and sort things out, or they don't.
hmm
Right?
hmm
And I don't have to spend any time telling people in my life. They either see it through the fruits of my labor by a thriving practice, or they would see a guy who's struggling to get clients.
hmm
Luckily for me, it's been the former, where my practice is full and people in the community and other businesses trust me, and I let that speak for itself. So we want to be wary both with the loved ones in our life and the friends and family members who struggle with addictions, and just in general in relationships, those who have a lot to say about the things that they're good at versus just kind of showing you through trustworthy actions that they're competent in taking care of themselves. Because anybody can say, I want to be sober, I'm not going to use this stuff anymore. But the question is, what are the actions, right?
hmm
Are their words, their feet, and their head in the same room at the same time, or are they living in delusion?
hmm Yeah, it's you're gonna have to cut this out. I totally forgot where I was
I'm not
going
gonna
with
cut it
this.
out. I'm gonna leave it in.
Um,
I'm gonna leave it in.
Man, I had a really good one too. Like, it was a life changer. If you're
Mm,
tuned in, it was a life changer. Oh, there it is.
mm,
Dopamine hits, right? The bottom line is, all the human race operates on dopamine, and it's part of our survival tactics and techniques throughout the centuries. Um, and it's still true today. The family member gets a dopamine hit when the alcoholic or addict says, I'm done for good and for all, and I mean it this time.
mm.
And the alcoholic and addict gets a dopamine hit from their substance, or uh,
Or also the false belief.
right,
You know,
right. And
they're like they bought what I said.
right, exactly right. And what I love so much about family members is they'll come to me and say, Don, you don't understand. He is a master manipulator. Well, if he was a master, you wouldn't know about it. So sorry to tell you,
Right.
you'd have no idea. Like the long con game actually works with professional con men or women, uh, and trying to convince somebody of getting well as an addict or alcoholic, or from the family member's perspective, trying to control that outcome is delusional. It's a dopamine hit, and we both want to believe in something that's just not true. It's just not true. Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
that dopamine right now. If you're scrolling, stop scrolling because you're looking for a dopamine
Right.
hit.
Yeah, this is much more laid back and peaceful, but you may get some more information from this.
Stop scrolling here.
It's we want to believe that people want to get better, right? We love these people. They
Mm-hmm.
love us. It's not that like so inherently deep down that it's a lie. It's just a matter of following the facts.
Mm-hmm.
So many times when I would run like family weekends or groups where family members come in, or I do these aspects in my recovery. We're getting ready to do one on Saturday where we'll go sit down at a treatment center and carry the message. Um, it's not about whether or not this person is lying to you.
Right.
It's about whether or not you can see clearly the facts of the behaviors that have been laid out in front of you. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from people, even in my personal life, about the addicts of like, but they did so well here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look, I don't give a shit. Like, that's great. I'm glad. I want people to succeed in their endeavors and the things that they do. But if that individual succeeds at work, but then comes home and tells me I'm a piece of shit, I don't really care how well their day went at work.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's like I'm going to follow the facts in my interpersonal relationships as to who I should be associating with, because at the end of my day, I don't want to feel like crap. All right. And I don't want to be mistreated. And it really isn't that masterful of a manipulation for them to keep me around, because it's my decision to put myself in a terrible situation. If someone's being like treating me poorly and I decide to stick around, that it has nothing to do with how masterful they are. It has everything to do with me ignoring my own needs. Right. And that was a piece in recovery I had to embrace. So if I want something to look different in my adult life, I have to make that change. And nobody can manipulate me to do something different. I get a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But see, I wasn't raised in an environment. God loved my parents. I wasn't raised in an environment where like that choice was abundantly clear, that I was going to get to make those choices. It was the pressures and the statements of like unity and we're perfect and this is great and you've got to have this relationship and we've got to let bygones be bygones. It wasn't a choice. It was told to me what I had to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And then somewhere in my adult life, all of that hits a point of distress. I'm really anxious about it. I find recovery, and wouldn't you know, everybody in those rooms like, hey, you have a choice in this, right? And then once I started to make that choice, you want to know what happened? I felt better. Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But with our mental health, people get caught up in, I don't have a choice, or I've been told that this is what I'm supposed to do. It's not about what you're supposed to do in the eyes of others. It's about what you feel would lead to peace in your life and having some say in that. And then making sure that those decisions and actions are reasonable and peaceful, right? Not intense and dramatic and chaotic. All right, so we flip these old decisions on their head. We flip these old narratives on their head, and we try to find some peace in our lives. Because if we don't, then you'll just mutter through miserably, and a lot of people do. You'll get to the end of your life, and it'll be kind of a mixture of this, of like the three different people. Is like, I went and I made it happen, right? I knew I could have done something and I didn't make it happen. Or you'll wake up one day and wonder what the fuck just happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't want to be on the back end at the end of our lives wondering what happened, right? We want to take an active stance in our life and make something happen for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And There's an old adage: a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And so trying to will this into someone else's life, recovery, as the addict or alcoholic, I want to convince the loved one to do what I want them to do. I want them to support me. I don't want to hear any kick, 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 right?
Mhm.
I just want to be able to float through my life. Don't change anything, because if you change things, it's going to mess up my game plan. And so I don't want the family member to stop giving me support, so I'll do and say whatever I have to do and say. And then from the family side, I love what you mentioned there, that the warning in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous is that it's easy, and it's the only thing that it talks about being easy. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. We're headed for trouble if we do. And what laurels means is past victories, past wins. So from the family members aspect, oh, but he stayed sober for 30 days, 90 days before. He was sober for 6 months. But if you follow the rabbit trail of facts, the fact is that's great. Every second counts, every minute counts, every moment counts. But the fact is they're loaded again, right? And you can't dress that up for
Mm.
yourself. You can't. Well, you can, and you if you're not well in your own spirit and your own self, then you will rest on your laurels. You will rest on those those past wins and not look at the current situation. And the same thing with the alcoholic or addict. I have been trying to I've been in recovery since 1987, November 11th, 1987, and I don't have 40 years of sobriety. You know, uh, I've had wins, 5.5 years or almost 6 years. I've had 8 years. I'm at nine again, a second time. So although though my recovery journey has had more sobriety time since 1987 than it has relapse time. The fact is, I rested on my laurels. The fact is, I rested on my past victories, making some ninth step amends and cleaning up my past, taking responsibility for it, and then kicking my heels up when the ones that I've made are the people who are most impactful in my life, like my wife or my husband or my family members where I'm living, or my employer that gives me the money to continue to drink or use. Um, I rest on my laurels. I rest on these past wins, and guess what? I get loaded. And then the family member rests on their laurels by saying, "Well, but he did so well for such a it's really in perspective, it's really a short amount of time. Even if
Mm.
it's 8 years, that's not the lifetime of sobriety that I committed myself to, that I was willing to do whatever was necessary to get over this for good and for all.
Mm.
For good and for all means until I stop breathing.
Yeah.
And so many times I've wanted to rest on, well, yeah, but I had almost 6 years before. Oh yeah, well, I had almost 8 years, or I had 8 years. Uh, I mean, I can rest on my laurels today. My wins with my family, my wife, my job, my career, my business, I can rest on those, and I'm headed for trouble if I do.
Mm.
Uh, it's uh, it's like making a decision to go to the gym. You can make a decision to go to the gym and never set foot in the gym, or get as far as the parking lot, which I'm familiar with, by the
Mhm.
way, and not go into the gym, or go like a bat out of hell for 3 months, 2 months, and then peter off and not go to the gym anymore.
Yeah.
Right? You can't rest on those past victories.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be perfect because on the other side of it with being a family member of an addict, if I if I spent 10 years detaching and then all of a sudden I decide to start taking it personally again and get really resentful, I'm going to end up insane again.
Right.
See, it's a much harder thing on the surface to track for the family member because it's not as visible as somebody who is using substances, who is kind
Mm-hmm.
of crashing out in life. Um, but the family member gets just as sick, and that sickness is a hyper focus on whether or not that other person is resting on their wins or committing their life to recovery. It's like I have a lot of people in my life that I love who are in 12 step recovery. And the last thing that I do when I wake up is think about, I wonder if they're sober right now. I'll find out. I'll
Mm-hmm.
find if they are or they aren't, I'll find out because I've got relationships built with these people. I'll hear from them and they'll be up to their usual good stuff. And if I don't hear that and hear something else chaotic, then I don't have to guess, right, anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if I find myself guessing and trying to question and wonder and figure it out, then I'm just as sick as my counterpart who's struggling with addiction, right? And they say in the Al-Anon side of things for the friends and family members, they don't give chips because we relapse every 10 seconds. It's like, I can tell you in the beginning, it's really hard to detach from whether or not someone you love is using, right? Or how to help them or how to help figure it out. But the more you remove yourself from that, the more you realize it was never up to you. It's never going to be up to you. And no matter what you do, it was never going to be controlled by you. And there's some peace and comfort in that. And it gives people their mental health back. I can't tell you how many people come into my therapy sessions. They're having panic attacks and anxiety attacks and spinning thoughts, and they're in such distress. And they start to work on just detaching from these issues, right? That other people are having, and then they never have a panic attack again. All right. This stuff isn't mystical or magical. It's just very practical of putting ourselves first, getting around people who understand it, all right, getting the proper information of recovery, and then working those simple steps. When we do those things, it addresses a lot of ailments in our life because they're built on philosophical principles of mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Admitting when we have a problem, right? That we're powerless over the problem, finding some kind of spirituality around it, taking inventory of it consistently, admitting again when we're wrong and how we've hurt people and how people have hurt us, making that right with people, praying about it, and teaching someone else how to do that. It's that simple. I just gave you all 12 steps in a practical little nutshell. And that's all we're being asked to do really in life. It's why in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, they say they've found few that this wouldn't be helpful for, is because this is a simple, practical position to walk a path of serenity in your life. And if you do these simple things consistently, you're going to have a pretty good life. You're going to have some pretty good relationships, and people are going to like you because it works.
Mm. And I would venture to say that uh, my experience is that the Al-Anon or the family member who is trying to control outcomes is sicker because their symptoms aren't so loud,
Well, substance didn't make us do it,
right?
you know?
Right. One, and there's no explosiveness. There's no, oh, he got another DWI,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no catastrophe. Now, there's internal catastrophe. And that's one of the things that, as you were speaking, I just came to this realization that because you're educating me also, is that for the Al Anon side, for the family member side, uh, you have to put yourself first. But for the alcoholic and the addict, we have to put ourselves last,
Mm.
right? We have to put the needs of other people ahead of our own because we're so used to living in selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, fear. These things control our life. And the more introspective I get, the more wrapped up in self that I get, and the less that I do to help other people. I'm trying to look out for me, 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 me. Whereas in the family side, it's you,
Mm-hmm.
right? You got to change. You got to get fixed for me to be happy. And so I really like what you said there about, you know, from the family perspective, you have to put yourself first. For the alcoholic or addict, you've already been doing that well enough. You can see what the outcome is. Cut it out.
Well, yeah, it's the full circle of giving the family system enough space, right? This isn't just true in the family disease of addiction. It's true in giving your child enough space to grow into college, into their own living environment, and stop stepping on each other's toes. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like when the alcoholic focuses on carrying the message and being of service to others, we do that in Al-Anon, but what we do that through is the process of worthiness of like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to focus on that problem. I can focus on mine and teach other people how I did that the same way you guys are. But we do it in such that way where my focus is velcro ripped off of you, all
Mm-hmm.
right, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
no longer stepping on your toes, so that I can focus on what the actual problem is for me, which is a deep rooted resentment that makes me want to take my shoe off and throw it at your fucking head for using again. And I love Don. I would do that shit if I was in my sickness and he was in his. We would be at each other's throats.
Mm.
And
And I've been trying to
when
fleece you for money.
yeah, and when we get of service to each other, we get to not have any conflicts and not step on each other's toes. And this is true for the family system. It's like we each in our own ways get to focus on what service means, and service means getting out of each other's way. Isn't it fascinating? It's like the most serviceful thing you can do is just get the fuck out of other people's way.
Well, and your own. Like,
Yeah.
get out of your own way, because instead of allowing life to happen, you're trying to control factors and variables that you cannot control. One of the things I like about I'm not big on the acronyms and a lot of the dogma that gets passed around in 12-step land. Um, but I do like an acronym for fear, and that's false evidence appearing real. And I'll create situations, or I'll situations will happen that I'll try to control the outcome, and I or I don't. I'm afraid of something that I'm going to lose that I already have, something that I'm not going to get that I want, or that someone is trying to, or someone might find out something that I've done and judge me, and false evidence appearing real. It hasn't happened yet. Those fears haven't been manifest. But then what I'll do is I'll take action based on this false evidence. And what invariably happens is that I create self-fulfilling prophecy, the thing that I'm afraid of. So the thing that I'm afraid of most causes the thing I'm most afraid of to happen.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I've tried to hang on to relationships because yes, I love them, but there was security in that, and they were enabling me, and so I didn't want them to leave, and I got overly jealous and controlling, and I didn't want her to leave. But what invariably happened is people who are healthy don't want to be controlled.
Mm.
They don't want to be manipulated, so they leave. And so the very thing that I was afraid of happening, I took action based on that fear, and I caused it to happen, and she left.
Mm. Yeah. So let go. This is our objective, to teach you guys today and to remind ourselves to let go, to live in the flow and the stream of life, to do and to be better, and to prioritize some healthier behaviors. Uh, I don't know if any of this was helpful for you guys. I don't stay up at night thinking about whether or not this is revelatory for anyone. I know it's helpful for those who seek it. And so we hope that something that we said here was helpful to you guys today. And we'll just keep showing up and having this conversation.
Yeah, I love educating people, but as you said, Alan, I don't. In fact, it probably doesn't help with the algorithm that I don't look at all the comments, or
Mm,
but I'm living my life. I hope and pray that this lands on just one set of ears that hears what we're saying and it changes your life. But I don't get to decide who those set of ears are.
mm,
I mean, we both have a voice in this room, and we're both saying the same things, but some of you are going to hear Alan and some of you are going to hear what I'm saying, and it's still the same message.
yeah.
but it's not up for me to decide who hears it and who doesn't. It's up to me to vocalize. And so hopefully this has landed for some of you, and you'll take action. Reach out to us, make comments that we can respond to you on. And what I mean by we, I mean Alan.
Yeah.
But we can be reached through social media. There's a TED talk that I gave. You can search on YouTube for Don Radon, and it's Radon. I'm also on Facebook with my own profile. So is Alan. He's got his practice and his own page. Reach out to us. Like, I do doom scroll from time to time. I don't comment, but I want to see what everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, go forth and seek God, and we'll see you in future episodes.
Peace.